Hello and a very warm welcome to another edition of Talking Germany, the show where we do just that. And my guest today is one of the rising stars of Germany's main opposition Social Democrat Party. She's also her party's parliamentary spokeswoman on one of the most sensitive issues in German politics, and that is integration. And here she is, Aydan Özoğuz.
Hello.
Thank you very much for coming all the way from Hamburg to join us today here on Talking Germany.
Thank you for inviting me.
Lovely, great stuff. Now, Aydan Özoğuz was born in Germany's northern port city of Hamburg to parents who moved there from Turkey. She says of herself that she's a migrant who's never migrated. It's a very interesting comment, I think, and I'm sure it's going to be fascinating to hear what she has to say about her role in German society and the following topics. A painful debate, a Cologne court ruling that circumcision should be outlawed has met with condemnation from the country's Jewish and Muslim communities. Lifelong learning. We look at a prize-winning project set up by two students to help the elderly overcome anxieties about using computers, the internet and social media. And the far north, it's one of Germany's most vibrant cities, Hamburg, where it's all about the port, the river and Fischbrötchen. Aydan Özoğuz will tell us more. Aydan is already smiling about the Fischbrötchen. I'm looking forward to the Fischbrötchen, but we must talk about serious stuff first. This is a serious programme. Let's talk about you. Yeah, I've mentioned Hamburg. You were born in Hamburg. It's your hometown. Yeah?
That's right.
2009, you were elected to the Bundestag, which means you're also based in Berlin these days. How much time do you spend in each of the cities? You must spend a lot of time commuting, I guess.
Well, I'm traveling the whole time, you can say. We have like Hamburg weeks and Berlin weeks, and I stay in Hamburg most of the time when it's Hamburg weeks, but in Berlin weeks I have to travel because I have a little daughter, and I cannot just leave her and say, okay, see you next week or whatever. So this is why I leave early the house and come back very late many times.
Sure, yeah. You got a seat in the Bundestag, as I mentioned already, 2009, and then you were elected last year, 2011, to your party's executive. You're a vice chairman of the party, vice chairwoman, however you want to say it, of the party.
Right.
Yeah? It's a very influential position, yeah? It's been quite a dramatic rise to prominence in German politics. That's very interesting to me because it comes at a time when a lot of people here in Germany, if you read the newspapers and the surveys, they say about their politicians, we're disillusioned, we're disenchanted, they don't get enough done. Yeah? Now, you're somebody who you tried to have an impact on the integration situation in Germany before you went into politics. Now you're in politics. Where could you have the bigger impact, outside or inside?
Actually, it's both. You really have to work on discussions, you know, because there are many topics that you have to discuss about and you cannot just solve them, you know. It's something that society has to talk about, differences and things that make me angry or afraid of or whatever. But this is actually almost the same outside the party and inside the party, that you need maybe several persons who live what you discuss about. You know, I lived through many things that, well, how can you live here as a child with Turkish roots, with a Turkish name, with Turkish parents? What do people say to you? And I do understand many young people who have kind of frustrations in their life just because of their roots. And just because people say, you're not really clever because you're Turkish or you're Arabic, you cannot really understand, that's normal. And that makes you really feel so frustrated. And I try to give them, well, kind of the feeling that you can rise very high once you try to do this and once you understand yourself as one part of this society.
Fascinating stuff. It would be difficult to overestimate how interested people outside Germany are in the whole question of integration in Germany. I think it's because of Germany's difficult history. That's one aspect of it, for sure.
Absolutely, yeah.
People are also really fascinated about the integration of the Turkish community into Germany. And myself, coming from an Anglo-Saxon background, I'm often asked, how is that process going? Okay. And I tend to give a positive assessment. As a general statement, it would be positive, optimistic. Yeah. Am I right to do so?
Well, In your situation, yes. It depends on the roots.
That was a very cautious answer.
Yeah, it depends on the roots, actually. I mean, once you speak English, many people find this so interesting.
No, but I'm not talking about me. We'll talk about me. We'll compare me and you in a little bit. But I'm talking about you more here. Is it about people from the Turkish community? Well, people say to me, are they getting a good deal? Is integration on the right track?
I think it is, but it's too slow. It's not fast enough. And we forgot to do this the last 40 years, maybe. If we had done it in the same, what do you say?
The same pace.
Yes, then we would have been quite in another situation today. I mean, we give like language courses to people who live here for 40 years and cannot speak German. We try to give them, we try to teach them how to write and to read and all these things. If we had started earlier, we would have come to another point today. But it's still important to do this. I mean, not to say, okay, this is old stuff and we do something else today. It's good to do this and good to try to bring this society together, to show everyone you are part of this society. The motivation and the feeling is so important. You learn language easier if you are motivated to do this. And you learn rules of a society so much faster if you know that it really makes sense to learn it. And once I see politicians who say, you're not really part of the society, you can do whatever you want, like you will never become a part of the society. Well, then you cannot really say, why don't they do this? Or why are they so much frustrated about it?
I'd like to ask you a bit of a cliched question, I suppose, but I want to ask it just the same. How do you describe yourself? As it seems to me you've got four options. You could say Turkish or German or Turkish-German or German-Turkish, or what do you say?
Oh, I said so many different things already. When I was born and raised here, I started to say I'm Turkish, but I live in Germany. Because I was Turkish, I had a Turkish citizenship. We didn't have any dual citizenship and not the German citizenship for foreign children. And then I started to say I'm a Hamburg girl, but with Turkish roots. And then, and when I was naturalized, I said I'm Turkish-German because I had both, like both citizenships and both cultures. This is probably what I am. But I'm more from Hamburg, It's like, it's different than from being from Munich or other cities in Germany.
And do you get annoyed with journalists when they ask you questions like that about trying to put you in a box somewhere?
Yeah, sometimes yes, sometimes no. It depends on the journalist. No, it's because, once when this word migrant came up, for example, I was so happy that that I wasn't a foreigner anymore. I was always labelled a foreigner.
Let me just interrupt for 1 second, because generally, certainly in the Anglo-Saxon world, people would use the word immigrant. Here in Germany, we have used... for the last, 10 years or so at least, we've said that people from minority communities who've come to live in Germany are migrants.
Migrants, yeah. But before that time, before 2000, we were foreigners. We always talked about foreigners and Germans, Ausländer. And I was Ausländer, even though I was born in Hamburg. And that was a little bit weird, to say I'm Ausländer, but I was born in Hamburg. And then this word migrant, that was like, it's a new step. And then when journalists ask me, I say, yes, I'm a migrant. But now it's like, it's just another... whatever, it's just another box that you are put in, and it doesn't really help you any further. So,
when you were, I think, 22, if I remember rightly, you took German citizenship.
Yes.
Okay, but you didn't have the possibility of taking dual citizenship. You only have German citizenship. That was a tough decision, I guess. Absolutely.
It's still a tough decision for everyone, I guess. But that time, it was a little bit different because you could have both. With a trick, if you say so. You could first, you gave back your citizenship that you had, whichever it was, and then you became German. And then afterwards, you could just go and get it back. So you had 2 citizenships and it was legal. Today, it's not legal anymore. You can only have 1 citizenship. And we have this new rule that from birth on, under certain circumstances, you can have both 2 citizenships, German and the one that your parents have. But then between 18 and 24 or 23, you have to decide for one of them. Yeah. And this is something that I really cannot accept.
Yeah, for me, living in Berlin, it's interesting and sometimes a sort of a despairing experience because...
Do you have 2?
I have dual citizenship.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Okay.
You were born in Germany.
Yes.
You grew up here, and I did. I came here as an adult.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have dual citizenship. You don't.
Yes, and you need it.
You have every reason to be very angry about that.
Yeah, you need it. It's not only a psychological thing or whatever. You need it. I mean, when my mother died, I had to go to Turkey, to Istanbul, and I had to present myself as a citizen there. Otherwise, I couldn't have buried her there. You know, with the graveyard, we would have great problems. So you really need it as a 2nd or 3rd generation. I guess that, I don't know, after that, nobody will really ask for it anymore. It's always interesting for the first generations that migrate.
Yeah. Tell me this, because, I mean, in the report we saw your brothers, your 2 brothers there,
yes.
yeah? And I know there's been a lot of controversy around that, and we don't need to talk about that, yeah? But what interests me is that you're very clearly very reconciled to being German, to living in Germany, to having grown up in Germany, although you see many problems. I sense that your brothers have they're coming from a very different angle.
Yes, they have they're very German too, actually. But they have different ideas about life, totally different ideas. We have such a big family, and just those 2 are quite different. I don't know, they go another path, and so our ideas about life are different.
Okay.
Yes.
One word. We have to use a long, complicated German word here. Einwanderungsgesellschaft. Which translates more or less as a society of integration. Yeah?
Yes.
And for a long time, Germany said, no, we are not a society of immigration. Then Germany sort of more or less said, yes, we are.
Yes.
And people like you don't quite believe it, and you say, we want you to prove that. We want to make it into a real society of immigration. Explain.
Yeah, one is the laws and whatever you need for the construction of such a society. But the other one is what you feel and how people deal with each other, and, you know, what's going on in school. And do you accept if someone is bilingual? Do you support these children? Or do you just say, you learn German and this is the only thing that is important? And this is still something that we have to fight for, to have a certain respect, you know, for other cultures, for other languages, and also to understand that Germany is becoming so much richer with all these resources, you know, like languages and cultures, and the understanding of all these, different cultures. Yeah. But this is something that is not... Yeah, you have to still work on it.
It's a process, but a slow process.
Absolutely.
Not slow, medium paced. It could be much faster, yeah? OK, some of the issues and the tensions that we've been talking about recently came into play when a court in Cologne ruled that circumcision of boys, which is widely practiced in Germany's Jewish and Muslim communities, should be made punishable by law. Why? Well, because the court said it amounts to bodily harm.
On the 8th day after their birth, Jewish baby boys are circumcised, a token of their link to God. A rabbi intones a blessing to accompany the ritual. Muslim boys are circumcised later in life and rewarded with a lavish party. At a Turkish market in Berlin, many are dismayed that this age-old ritual may now be considered unlawful mutilation of the body in Germany.
For Islamic law, it's a disaster.
Among Jews and Muslims, it's a basic belief that's developed over millennia. I think it should stay that way.
This isn't good. There are lots of Muslims in Germany. I myself have 2 boys who were circumcised 6 and 7 years ago.
Doctors at Berlin's Jewish hospital usually circumcise about 300 Jewish and Muslim boys a year. Senior consultant Christoph Graf says there can be medical justification for circumcising small children. All planned circumcisions have now been cancelled because the legal status is unclear. But at what price?
I don't think these families will decide not to circumcise their children. The question is, where will they go if doctors and clinics in Germany are no longer allowed to offer the operation? The problem I see is that people will go where the procedure is not performed under optimal conditions.
Paediatrician Wolfram Hartmann, in contrast, criticises circumcision on medical grounds.
Circumcision interferes with the physical integrity of a child who can't consent, because he's at an age when children are unable to consent to such an operation. It's an operation performed on an intact body, and such an operation is medically irresponsible.
Devout Jews dispute that vehemently. Orthodox Rabbi Yehuda Teichtal from Berlin is among those who say that if circumcision were made illegal, it would jeopardize the future of Judaism in Germany.
The Jewish community here is in shock. How can this be? How can Jewish life continue? Unfortunately, it won't be possible to live life as a Jew here in the long term if this verdict is implemented.
Jews and Muslims are working together to ensure the political and judicial systems provide them with security under the law.
It's a really, really, really difficult debate. Yeah? It's been described as a minefield. Mm-hmm. Yeah? What's your position?
Well, I think it is a difficult discussion because, first of all, we have to have a discussion, a normal discussion. It's very emotional.
It became very inflamed very quickly, didn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, in such a short time. Yeah. And it's also hard to find out the motivation. Because some people just don't like religions, which is absolutely okay and legal, but they will always find, like arguments against it. Then there are others who think of the children and say, well, I'm for children's rights, which is also a good argument. But then you have the religious families. And what is weird in Germany is that people who are not Jews and not Muslims discuss about those groups and their rights. That makes it a little bit difficult, because this also brings the solution that, not a solution, that brings the situation that Jews and Muslims say they are against us, which is kind of this feeling, that you can transport with such a discussion. So what we need is to bring the emotions a little bit down again and then find ways how to combine all these rights. I mean, what you can really see is that when children have these, what do you call them, these
earlobes, or what? I'm not with you.
when you have these, when you put
an earring,
and you need a hole for it.
You need a piercing of your earlobe.
Right. When you do this for little children, it's the same, know.
Yeah.
And then, but you don't have the discussion about it. You have it now where it is where it is a religious topic, and we try to find a good way to bring people to their right to have a religious living in Germany for Jews and for Muslims. On the same way, of course. I mean, I also want children to have their rights, but it's not good to my mind. This is absolutely to my mind to say that the state has to rule everything about the children. This is an illusion to me. I mean, I don't think that it works. Parents are the most important part for children. They give the way, if they want or not. You always give your child a certain path and a certain way. And once you're an adult, or was 16, 17, I don't know, then you can find another way for yourself, of course. But I think it's very important to strengthen the family and also their religious way.
That was very interesting. And I take on board everything you're saying, but I asked you about your personal opinion on this, yeah? And I'm just a little bit curious. I mean, you've got a daughter who's 9 years old, as we've learnt already,
yes.
Yeah? You don't have a son.
That's true.
Yeah? You might be thinking, in the context of this debate, that it's a good thing you don't have a son.
No. Actually, I mean, in case my husband would have accepted this too, which is very important, of course, that parents want the same thing. I would have done this also to my son, and I would have had the feeling that I'm a very good mother, caring and loving, you know. But I think this is, from my religion, a good way, and it's medically done, like for thousands of people. Yeah. There you don't discuss it. Yeah. So, but it means at least that it's nothing that gives you harm. If it's medically done, you cannot really say it's a big harm for people. That makes it a little bit difficult to discuss about it.
In the present context, because this was a provisional ruling and we don't really know how it's going to play out, it might be revised, we just don't know at this point in time. The situation for Turkish parents and Jewish parents at the moment who want their son to be circumcised is, as I understand it, we're getting reports of people going outside Germany to have that done.
Yeah.
Is that happening? Do you know how, to what extent that's happening?
Well, actually, I just went to Turkey for 9 days, our summer vacation, and I met families who told me, you know, we have our son here, and you never know what in Germany will go on, so we better let it done here. But this is something that there's a big danger in this. Once you have a law or once you forbid this, then people will do it anyway, but will do it somewhere. You know, you don't really have the medical care that you need for it, and that might really give harm to children. I mean, to criminalize such an act is, to my mind, a very dangerous thing. Even, you know, if you think of the children. So it's better to find good solutions that people can do this, but in good situation and a good medical circumstance.
But as a correspondent reporting from Germany, I remember I went on air just a couple of weeks ago and I said, the politicians in Germany are going to somehow put this right. You're one of the politicians and you're saying we don't know quite what's going to happen.
No, we want a law that just says this is legal and this is okay. And we just had this discussion in the Bundestag, a very short discussion, where we all agreed, I mean, most of us agreed that we need a rule, a law that makes it legal. And they are preparing now such a law. But I think also in many groups there will be many discussions still. I mean, it's not just we do it, but there are also some people who say, no, we don't want it.
Because there are differences of opinion and we live in a time where, you know, where we're somewhere between tradition and sort of the modern world, yeah?
Yeah, it's religion.
It's religion.
I see a difference between just tradition and religion and, what we have today here.
OK, point taken. Another area in which Aydan Özoğuz is a bit of an expert is the whole area of sort of media, internet and what have you. We're going to move into that area now. And a silver surfer is what we're going to talk about. That's what they call older men and women who are computer and especially, of course, internet savvy. Figures from some countries suggest that a majority of people over, say, 50 are now using the net and social network sites. Older Germans, it seems, have some catching up to do there. And they're getting some help from an initiative called Starthilfe 50, which translates more or less as getting going 50 plus.
The lights are from the hardware store. They got the reflectors somewhere cheaply, and a broomstick serves as a microphone boom. Christopher Braun and Andreas Dautermann are shooting a new educational film. Today, it's about security on Facebook, the world's largest social networking service. Their target group is elderly people.
We noticed our parents, acquaintances, and relatives really wanted to explore the internet, but had trouble getting started because they didn't know enough about computers. Because we'd already done a project with videos at university, we had the idea of explaining computers and the internet on educational videos.
They founded Starthilfe 50 in 2010. Dautermann and Braun wanted to give older people who were timid about using computers a sense of security. They've won awards all over Germany for their work.
We target mainly older people who have no experience with computers, who didn't grow up with them. You can show teenagers something in 5 seconds and they'll understand it. Here you need more patience, and you can't use jargon or English terminology.
The two young entrepreneurs test out their DVD in Mainz. They want to see for themselves where questions come up. Here they're meeting mainly older people who want to keep up with their grandchildren. Many want to find out how to use sites like Facebook to keep in contact with friends and family. But Facebook is controversial. Privacy advocates currently complain about its timeline, a databank that never forgets anything. That makes older people especially uneasy. They ask how they can protect themselves from being spied on.
I'm really kind of clumsy with Facebook, but he explained it very well. Sometimes I go wild when something doesn't work on my computer. It can be hard, and then I get mad. But I'm proud when I master it at last.
The young filmmakers send out between 15 and 20 DVDs a week. You can find out all about them on their website. And despite their computer, internet and Facebook contents, they send their DVD out the old way, by mail.
A good old-fashioned letterbox.
Yes.
It's a good project.
Absolutely, yeah.
Do you have any experience about sort of older people and the internet, social media, and what have you?
Well, I invite many older people in Hamburg.
Oh yeah, in your constituency.
Yeah, to my office, and then we talk about this exactly. And I ask them because I try to find out, what's going on with them. And then you have a situation where many older people would like to do more, and they don't really dare to do it. They're just, it's like there's such this fear, oh, it might be wrong what I do, and then I don't find the way back, and I cannot really, solve this problem, whatever. So we really need such projects where you have help, where young people help the older. And what I can see is once you have family, and you have young people in your family, many older people find this way to the internet quite easily, at least to those things that they find interesting.
Yeah. You could almost be talking about my family sometimes, because I think I'm pretty good on the internet and in social media, but sometimes there is a new challenge that comes along. Absolutely. And I turn around to my son and I say, can you solve that problem quickly? And then I'll profit from, the way you do that.
You cannot really learn everything that is going on in the internet. This is not really possible, and you don't need it. But I think this is the challenge, to find out what do I need, what is good for me. And it's sometimes a little bit, difficult in the beginning, but then once you know how to play with it and how to deal with it, then it might open many new
This might be a stupid question, but is there an integration aspect to all this? Is there a sort of I'm asking you the question, is this a relevant question for the Turkish community? Is there some special aspect to this debate?
Absolutely, yeah. What we found out, I think, there are different solutions, but you can see that many people, Turkish-rooted, for example, in Germany, they know how to use Skype and all these things to talk to their families.
Yeah, very important.
Which makes it easier, of course. But you also have many things in the internet that is like young people who show their frustration or show that they say like, we don't like Germany, and then you try to find out why. I go and talk to some people. Why is it like this? And this is, of course, a very, very important aspect to find out what's going on there in the internet. Yeah.
So a forum becomes a forum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there are many, many very interesting things for me that I cannot find in German newspapers, that I cannot really find anywhere, news that I need to know. Let's say what's going on with some mosques. We have like, they were burning some of them in the last month, and we couldn't really read this in the German newspapers, and I could find this in some forums.
Okay, so a valuable resource as well.
Absolutely.
Change of topic.
Okay.
Hamburg. We've talked about it already. It rains a lot.
That's
she
true.
laughs. She laughs.
Yeah, for example, today it was raining cats and dogs.
There you go. The football team is no good.
Yeah, unfortunately. That's true.
The people are standoffish, reserved.
No, that's not true.
Ah, good, OK.
I mean...
I was just trying to get a first impression. We'll talk about Hamburg in just a second. The people are not standoffish, yeah, we've discovered, yeah? Yeah, if you want to find out what makes Hamburg so special, one way to do so is to go on a boat trip around the harbour area, perhaps even a literary boat trip.
This is the port of Hamburg. There's St. Michaelis Church and the Elbe Philharmonic. But what do you have to do to be considered a real citizen of Hamburg?
Sing sea shanties at the very least. Take a tour of the port so you know it well. And you have to like fish sandwiches.
There are literary tours of the port, Texttouren, where you can do all that and test yourself to see if you can become a typical denizen of Hamburg. To start off, there's literature on board, a love letter to the city and its residents.
Stories of strange fools and wonderful windjammers, of bars, divers, ordinary sailors, and beer-drinking ladies. Come to the port and you'll hear all the world's stories. You'll hear about what once was and whatever more shall be.
On the tour, the guests hear passages by famous writers about the Hanseatic city. Magdalena Börsen thought up the successful concept and founded Texttouren. But she doesn't just convey literary knowledge. She also gets her passengers singing and practicing the local dialect of Low German spoken here. If they can do that, they pass the test. As a reward, they get a traditional snack, a bread roll with herring. Some can't quite manage to eat it. After a short stopover, there's the next task, spinning a nautical yarn.
You have to tell a story without losing the thread, so you wind this red thread around your finger and hand it on to the next person.
Then, right on cue, it starts to rain. That, too, is part of Hamburg.
I'd love to steer. Could I try?
A woman at the helm of a harbor launch is still a rarity.
Strangely enough, it's harder than you'd imagine to keep the boat on an even keel, but my grandfather went to sea and so did my father, so somehow it feels good.
The passengers sail through the port, the new Hafen city, and the warehouse district. Sailors' knots and stories alternate until the moment comes for the Elbtaufe, the Elb baptism, when they're given a new name which they'll be allowed to use the next time they're on the river.
Petra, the Elbe baptizes you with the name Sunny Morning. Protect the river and keep it in your heart.
The trip takes 2 hours. And on the final stretch, the Elbe produces some real waves for the passengers. But of course, now that they've been baptized on the river, that's something they can take in stride.
Well, I've been on 2 boat trips in Hamburg in my time. Yeah, I enjoyed them very much. Have you been on one?
Sure.
Sure.
Many times.
Okay, so that was number 1. You've passed that test, yeah? Can you sing a sea shanty?
Oh, no, I wouldn't. I'm not here.
Not in a television studio.
No.
Can you speak this? Can you speak the local dialect, Plattdeutsch?
No, not really.
Oh, good.
I can understand it quite well, but I don't speak it.
Okay, so everything now hinges on you giving me a yes to this next question. Do you like fischbrötchen?
Yes.
Yeah, the local sort of fish sandwiches.
Yeah.
Yeah. What kind of fischbrötchen do you like best of all?
Oh, I like many. I mean, I prefer Krabbenbrötchen.
Okay, so prawns.
Yeah.
Okay. I like herrings and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, no.
But I need to have onions on them.
Yes, that's very important.
That's very important. Just describe for me, because I think it's the best thing about Hamburg. I know there's lots of good things about Hamburg, but for me, as an outsider, just describe the cityscape.
The cityscape?
The cityscape. What the city looks like when you look out over the city.
It's a harbour city.
Yeah.
Both of my cities, Istanbul and Hamburg, are harbour cities, which is the most important part.
That's an interesting comparison,
yes.
Isn't it? They're very similar in that way.
I like the ships. I like the atmosphere.
Yeah.
You have many people from many parts of the world, of course, in the harbour and near the harbour. But you also have very conservative housing, whatever.
You have huge, great big villas.
Yeah, but you have normal houses too. Yeah, that's true.
Hamburg is famous
nice
for having the most millionaires in Germany.
Yes, that's true. And I mean, to walk around the Alster, for example, is very, very nice.
Sort of the little lake inside, the inner city lake, I suppose you'd call it.
Yeah, you walk like 7 kilometers. It's like... it's so... I mean, you cannot really have one picture of Hamburg.
I like the comparison with Istanbul.
Maybe the red roofs and green roofs. It's very typical. Yeah.
We like to invite our guests to bring something along that means a lot to them. And you've brought along something very interesting.
Yeah.
A walking stick.
That's true,
What's
of my grandfather.
What's the story behind the walking stick?
Yeah, the story is that it was my grandfather's walking stick, and I have this... this noise that I always have in my mind.
The thumping sort of noise. Yeah.
And it combines Istanbul and Hamburg for me because my grandfather always had this with him. It was something that was always the same in both cities. Yeah. And I admired my grandfather also.
Tell us about your grandfather.
His family was partly Greek, partly Turkish, partly I don't know, and but he grew up without parents almost, and he was a very fair person. He was like fair to everyone, but also someone who worked hard to give his family a better life. And he gave us the education and to like education, to show us it's very interesting to see the world. He was traveling with us in almost all countries of Europe, for example.
Fantastic.
Yeah, he was traveling in Turkey with us, and he had always the stick with him.
That's been a little bit of the theme of our discussion today, hasn't it? Really, the sort of encouraging people to be open and enthusiastic for education. Yeah, that's
true. I had it in my family. That was
good for you.
For me, yeah.
Good family. Good granddad.
Yeah, everyone has a good family, though.
Quick questions at the end. Our traditional Talking Germany quiz.
Okay.
Which city is more stunning, Istanbul or Hamburg?
Stunning.
Stunning. When you look at it, you go, breathtaking.
Probably Istanbul.
You weren't happy to say that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love both cities, but Istanbul is a little bit more, it's 2 continents.
Germany and integration, are we on the right track or is it a rocky road?
It's rocky, but we're on the right track.
Cool. Are we going to see your party back in government next year's elections?
I hope so.
Are we going to see you in the cabinet?
I don't know. I don't know yet. But we work hard to win this election.
I shall be following your career very, very closely indeed. Thank you for joining us today. Yeah.
Thank you.
She's been a great guest. She's very eloquent. She's not reserved. Yeah. She's very proud. She's from Hamburg, but not reserved. Aydan Özoğuz, thank you very much for joining us today. If you've enjoyed her company as much as I have, come back next week. Tschüss.
Tschüss.